All right. So, how many of you guys were here a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the cosmological argument for the existence of God? Sweet. You brought the paper. Good job. Well, good deal. Who can explain to me, in short detail, the cosmological argument for the existence of God? Ike, go for it. Huh? That's the teleological argument for the existence of God, which we're going to talk about tonight. So you did some reading ahead. Good job. Someone explained to me what we talked about a couple weeks ago with the cosmological argument for the existence of God. Dylan, what you got? I feel like that has to be considered cheating, but she got the answer, so good job, Dylan. So we talked about the cosmological argument for the existence of God, which essentially says that everything has a beginning. And so in order for the world to have a beginning, there has to be a beginning maker, or there has to be an uncreated creator, one who existed outside of time and space, one who existed outside of the earth, who created the earth, who created time and space, and who continues to exist even now. We talked about this idea, I'm going to use a big word, of infinite regress and how that is impossible. What that means is that, we can say that something produced our world, but where did that come from? Okay, so something produced those things, but where did that come from? Something produced those things, but where did that come from? And the infinite regress says that, things have just always produced other things, but there was never a beginning. But we pointed out that that doesn't really make sense. It's not logical to really think that there could be an infinite regress, this thing that would just constantly go backwards and backwards and backwards of producing new things that have led to the world that we live in, because that's just not logical. So we talked about how there has to be an uncreated creator, i.e., God. Okay? So tonight we're going to talk about the next argument for the existence of God, which is the teleological argument. Now, teleological, how many of you guys know what's the language that I love to study? Greek. No, I don't like English. English is so, did you say math? I don't speak the language of math. I love the Greek language. Teleological argument, the word teleological comes from the Greek word telos, which just means the end. Huh? What? No, it does not mean TV. It means end. Okay? So the teleological argument, I've got this sheet for you right here where we're going to break down all the different pieces of what we're going to talk through tonight about the teleological argument. So we're going to ask the question, what is the argument? Then, as we address that, we're going to talk about this idea of what's called fine-tuning. We're going to talk about what is fine-tuning, and then we're going to talk about some examples of fine-tuning. Then we're going to ask the question, well, what are the other options, right? Surely there's another option. And then we're going to talk about some shortcomings of the argument. But before we get into it, I want you to picture this, okay? You are playing a game of poker, okay? I know. Just hear me out, okay? You're playing a game of poker where you're not betting anything because that's wrong, okay? But you're playing a game of poker. The way that this game works is that you have, everybody is dealt 5 cards, and you guys are working constantly to try and get the best match, okay? Now, some of those are going to be pairs of 2, where you get 2 of the same card, or pairs of 3, or maybe you get a straight, which is like 4, 5, 6, 7. Or the best option that you can get is called a royal flush, okay? A royal flush is where you get 10, jack, queen, king, and ace, all of the same suit. That's called a royal flush. Now, the odds of getting a royal flush are about 1 in 31,000. So the odds of getting a royal flush are not very high. Okay? So you're sitting at this table. You're playing poker with a couple of your friends. And as you're playing the game, you get dealt a pretty good hand. You're like, hey, okay, we're betting with our cheese crackers, and so I'm like, I got a good hand. I'm going all in, right? So you put in a really big bet, to put in all your cheese crackers, and you're like, I feel so confident. I'm about to get so many cheese crackers. And what happens? Everybody flips. You flip your really good hand. The person next to you flips his hand. The person next to him flips his hand. And then the very last person, they flip their hand, and they have, what is it? A royal flush. They have a 10, jack, queen, king, and ace, all of the same suit. 1 in 31,000, right? So you're sitting there, and you're like, no way, are you kidding me? And you're like mind blown that this person got a royal flush. Great. You're like, you know what? That's absolutely insane. Never seen that before, but hey, good for you. That's awesome. Well, you decide to continue playing. You get some more cheese crackers, right? And as you continue playing, you get dealt another really good hand. You're ready to go. You're like, this is the best. All in. Everybody flips their hands, and that same person gets a royal flush a second time. Okay. No way, right? There's no way that I go all in 2 times in a row when I have a really good hand, and this guy gets a royal flush twice in a row. The odds of that happening are 1 in 957 million. So that means that if we played 957 million games, the chance that he's going to get 2 royal flushes in a row, it's almost impossible. We'd have to play 957 million games for him to get it 2 times in a row, okay? But your friend feels merciful. You've gone all in twice. You've made yourself a fool. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to give you some of these cheese crackers back because I want you to keep playing. So you sit at the table, and you start the game again. You get dealt a really good hand. You get a 9, a 10, a jack, a queen, right? You're like, man, this is a really good hand. Well, you get to the end of the game, and you flip all the cards, and that same guy has a royal flush a third time. Now, all of your cheese crackers, all the cheese crackers that were given back to you, and now your best friend's cheese crackers also belongs to this guy because you had to borrow cheese crackers from a friend. So now, he's done this 3 times in a row, where he's gotten a royal flush 3 times in a row. The odds of him doing that are absolutely insane. There's no possible way that he can do it 3 times. But guess what? You're dumb enough to sit at the table through 2 more games, and he gets 2 more royal flushes in a row. This kid has gotten 5 royal flushes in a row, and he doesn't even know how to play poker. He thinks we're playing Go Fish, okay? So this kid's gotten 5 in a row. The chances of him getting 5 royal flushes in a row, to the point where now all of your cheese crackers, all of your best friend's cheese crackers that you borrowed, the cheese crackers that you promised to not any longer give to your kids in the future, but now you're going to give them to him, the ones that belong to your children's children, and the ones that belong to your children's children's children, now all belong to this friend who beat you 5 times in a game of poker. The odds of that happening are 1 in 28 sextillion. Let me give you a picture of what that number is. That is 28 followed by 22 zeros. That's a really, really big number. The odds of you getting 5 royal flushes in a row is 1 in 28 followed by 22 zeros. It's kind of hard to put into brain capacity what the odds of that are, but let me tell you, it's essentially impossible. Okay? It's essentially impossible. So, say that this guy gets 5 in a row. What are we probably assuming? This guy's cheating, right? Now, maybe 2 times in a row. That's insane. But if he gets it a third time, all right, man, I heard Peyton. After time number 2, this guy's cheating, right? You get a third time, there's no way. A fourth time, if you're not leaving the table, you might be the dumbest poker player of all time, okay? There's no way you're going to sit through 5 of these games and not assume that this guy just has the best luck in the world, right? Maybe he does. But at the very least, you're questioning. Really? There's no cheating here. There's nothing fishy about this. 5 times in a row, the odds that small, at the very least, maybe not you, because maybe you are the dumbest poker player of all time, but maybe one of the other people sitting at the table are like, hey, something feels fishy here, okay? That's the kind of odds that we're talking about tonight with the teleological argument. So, what is the teleological argument? Let's define it. The teleological argument says that the complex universe is not chaotic, but it's orderly. Its workings can be described by relatively simple scientific theories. Surely, it's more reasonable to suppose that this universe was designed by an intelligent designer, aka God, than to suppose that it exists without design. The teleological argument claims that the appearance of design and purpose in nature implies a designer. Okay? Let's put this in simple terms. Essentially, you're walking through a field and you find a watch on the ground. Okay? And you come up with two ideas in your mind. One, there was a person who had a bunch of pieces of metal and glass, and they crafted a watch. They were walking through the field one day, and they happened to accidentally drop the watch. And there it is, you found the watch. Option number two, this same person grabbed all the pieces of metal and glass, shaking it up in their hand like it's a dice, and as they're walking through the field, they're just like, whoop-de-doo, throws it over their head, and somehow the pieces perfectly fall and craft a perfect watch. Which one makes more sense? The first one, right? Listen, the first one makes more sense. Now, listen, is it that these are the only two options? No. But between the two options that we have here, which are the greatest options that we have, the first one, where someone took all the pieces and intentionally put every piece together so that the watch worked perfectly, makes more sense than if they just threw it over their shoulder and it just happened by chance. Teleological arguments are framed in terms of likelihood and assumption. For example, is it more logical and probable to assume that this happened by chance or by design? The question we're asking is, how is it that our world, that our universe exists the way that it does with all of its tiny little perfections? Is it more logical to believe that it happened by chance, that all these things just accidentally happened perfectly, or that there was an intelligent God who created all these things and set them in perfect order? Now, human experience routinely distinguishes between intent and accident, right? You know, we're constantly asking the question, surely this thing is rigged, right? If we see something that it's not possible that that really could happen that way, or it's not likely that it would happen that way, we begin to ask the question, that's rigged, right? What's going on there? Something seems fishy about that. But people who will argue against the teleological argument try to put that idea aside and be like, no, I mean, we think everything is chance. But the reality is that when it comes to the existence of God and things working out perfectly the way that our universe works, which we'll talk about in a minute, a lot of times they'll try to minimize that and be like, no, chance makes sense. Chance is the biggest option, right? At some point, we have to wonder if the game is rigged. Let's break down some of those perfect things about the way our universe works and what would happen if they didn't work perfectly. So first off, there were some people who decided to take the teleological argument a little bit further. And they decided to talk about this thing called fine-tuning. What is fine-tuning? Fine-tuning refers to the fact that the foundational, regional, and locational conditions of our universe, solar system, and planet are delicately balanced and finely calibrated. The slightest modification of these conditions would be disastrous for life. Simple language, things work really, really perfectly, and if anything was adjusted just slightly, nothing would exist. Okay? Let's break down, what are some examples of fine-tuning? Go ahead and throw the next one up there. What are some examples of fine-tuning? We're not going to talk about all these, but I'm going to talk about a couple of them. So first off, Earth's relationship to the sun. We are perfectly far away from the sun to where we don't burn up, but we're close enough to the sun where we don't just drift off into space and freeze over and everybody dies, right? Our atmospheric conditions, our terrestrial nature, our relationship to the moon, the Earth's axis, the way that we're tilted in a particular way, not too far to where everything would die off and we'd have really hot days and cold nights. The Earth's rotation speed is so perfect that we're able to have good conditions for day and good conditions for night, where nights aren't excessively long to where we get so shielded from the sun where we all get frozen, and our days aren't so long that we get to experience 160-degree weather. You know, it's October and it's still hot outside, but at least we're not burning up and dying, right? We have perfect conditions for living. The strength of gravity, strong nuclear force, that is the force that holds atoms together. Okay? Let me give you one more. The earth and the universe, as we know it, is constantly expanding. Our universe is a never-ending expanse. And it is expanding at a particular rate that, honestly, I would try and put into words the rate at which it's expanding, but I really can't do that. The best way I can describe it is it's about 5 miles every second. 5 miles every second that our universe is expanding. Now, if our universe expanded at 5.1 or 5.000001 miles per second, our universe would expand too rapidly, and what would happen is everything would be stretched out so far. Wow, I just spit like crazy. It would expand so fast that everything would stretch out, and we would all be stretched out because of the rapid rate in which the universe was expanding, and the universe would fold over on itself, and everything would die. Now, if it was the opposite, and it was 4.999999999 miles per second, same thing. We would expand too slowly, and everything would cease to exist as it is. Now, again, I would try to put into words how that's possible, but our human minds can't comprehend it. I'm studying for this to be able to teach this, and I'm just like, what, right? The whole time. Like, it's mind-blowing. It's hard to put into our minds how this all really works. But if only one thing is different, if only one numeric value is different, everything folds over on itself, and everything in the universe basically just explodes. Okay? The way that this would work, it's as if I took a dime. You guys know how small a dime is, right? Dime is like that size. Okay, a dime is this big. So I take a dime, and I put it on the ground. Then I take another dime, and I'm going to put them right next to each other, where they're touching. I'm going to keep doing that until I've covered the entire North American continent. Canada, the United States, and Mexico. It's a lot of dimes, right? Okay, now I'm going to take those dimes, and I'm going to stack some more on top of them. Then I'm going to keep stacking the dimes on top of each other, and on top of each other, and on top of each other, until those dimes reach the moon. We've got the entire North American continent full of dimes reaching all the way to the moon. Now I'm going to multiply that number of dimes times 1 billion. Okay? Do you guys understand how many dimes we have? We have a lot of dimes. Okay? Now, on just one of those dimes, as I'm stacking the dimes, I drew a little smiley face. Then I ask Lexi. I say, Lexi, I'm going to blindfold you. Okay? And I drew a smiley face on only one of these dimes. You have one chance to guess which dime it is. And if you get it incorrect, even if it's just one dime off, the entire universe is going to cease to exist and we're all going to die. Right? Isn't that crazy? Okay. The fate of the universe is in Lexi's hands. We better hope she doesn't mess it up, right? So if Lexi tried to do this, and she got just so close, but she was just one dime off, that's the equivalent of the expansion rate of the universe. That if our universe expanded just one dime too quickly, everything is going to stretch out and cease to exist because everything will fold over on itself, will be stretched out too thin, and everybody's going to die. Do you understand how small a chance that we have for this universe to even work? We have such a small probability of this thing actually working. And so we have to ask the question, could this just be by chance? Or was there something intentional here? And I would have to argue, I think it makes more sense for this to be intentional. So what is fine-tuning? Fine-tuning refers to the fact that some of these things have to be perfectly calibrated in order for life to exist as we know it. Now, on the back of your paper, I gave you just 6 examples. All of these have to be finely tuned to a specific degree, like that singular dime in all the dimes of the entire North American continent reaching to the moon times 1 billion. Each of these examples is like that. These are called cosmic constants. Everybody say cosmic constants. Try saying that 5 times fast, right? Yeah, see, it's hard to say 5 times fast, but you get the point. That have to be perfectly calibrated to this number, and if at any point in the history of all the universe, one of these things was tilted by just 1 degree, everything ceases to exist. Everything spaces out too quickly or too slowly. We rotate too fast or too slowly. We tilt too far or not far enough. And everything as we know it ceases to exist and everything blows up. Right? That's crazy. I don't know if you guys can really, again, I can't even put it into my mind this whole time. Like, I'd like study this for a minute and then I'd be like, Hannah, can you believe this? And like, I'd talk about it and she'd be like, that makes no sense. And I'd be like, I know. Just the whole time. Like, there is such a small shot of this actually working out. It would be like saying, I want you to hit a centimeter target. Some of you may be a really good shot. You're like, oh, I could hit a centimeter target right on the bullseye. But I'm going to put this on the all the way opposite side of our known universe, outside of our galaxy, outside the next galaxy, all the way to where the expanding end of the galaxy or of the universe is. And you have to hit that one mark. And you got 1 shot. It doesn't make sense. But guess what? It all works out so perfectly that this earth can sustain life. And not just life, intelligent life. You've got a brain, and your brain works, and we have the ability to think about these things and how crazy these things are and try to get into our minds how wild this is. And yet, with such a small shot, it works. Okay? So these are some examples of fine-tuning, but obviously, as we approach the teleological argument, we want to ask, what are our other options? So, what are the other options? First off, necessity. Okay? Say that there is no God and that from the beginning, things just started out, big bang, boom, everything happens, and everything had to happen the way that it is right now. Well, even scientists who don't believe in God will agree, no, our cosmic constants don't have to be the way that they are, but man, it's a good thing that they are. Because if they aren't, every one of us is gone. So, necessity? No. Chance. Is there a chance that all of this could work out perfectly? Yeah, there is a chance. But again, is it probable? Does it make sense to actually think that this could be chance? Does it make sense to actually believe that this could all have happened accidentally from the beginning, from someone not even existing, and the earth just decided to boom, now everything's perfect? Does it really make sense to think that all of these different little tiny things, that if they get adjusted only slightly, everything ceases to exist? Does it make sense? No. Is it possible? Sure. But the people who will say that it has to be by chance will argue that it makes so much more sense to believe in chance than to believe in a God who existed outside of space and time. And I would have to argue, no, actually, I think believing in a God who exists outside of space and time and actually made all this work is a better reason to believe. It's a better thing to actually think that this could actually happen this way because we had someone behind it the whole time making it work, who knew what he was doing. Third option, a multiverse. You thought this was just in Marvel? You're wrong. Some people actually believe this, right? Okay? So here's how the argument goes. there is what's called a multiverse generator. Okay? Now, this is the argument. In this multiverse generator, the generator is constantly just popping out new universes. New universes day after day after day after day. And it's just going and going and going. These universes exist inside this bubble. They're essentially like drifting off into the distance. And at some point, it's going to pop out a universe that is capable of sustaining life. That's going to have all the cosmic constants worked out perfectly. Now, is it possible? Sure, I guess. But in order for a multiverse generator to exist, that thing has to be finely tuned in order to create a bunch of different universes. So you have to come back to, okay, well, sure, but how do you explain where the multiverse generator comes from? Right? Option number 4, the universe always existed. We talked about this last time with the cosmological argument. We have to go back. Does it make sense that the universe just always existed? No, not really, right? Everything has a cause. So, what is the cause? Well, I don't know. What are our options, right? Then we get to approach this conversation. Okay, what are some shortcomings of the teleological argument? Shortcomings of the teleological argument. The question of the identity of the designer is left open. So if we can get to the point where after talking through all of this, the person that we're having a conversation with can say, sure, maybe there was someone at the beginning who made all of this. But that doesn't necessarily prove that the Bible's true. Yeah, they're right, okay? The shortcomings of the teleological argument is the exact same as the cosmological argument, in that with the teleological argument alone, you cannot say that the God of the Bible is the creator of the universe. You can get to the point that there had to be a creator, but you can't say, just by using the teleological argument, that it was the God of the Bible. So, how do we approach that conversation? They say, you know what? Sure, there's a creator. But I don't think it's your God. You say, okay. We've gotten to the point where this argument ends. So now, what do I do from there? I then engage them in a conversation about Scripture. This is why we need to know our own Scriptures. And this is why next semester what we're going to do is we're going to spend time looking at all the other different world religions, or as many as we can get to, so that as we have these conversations with people and they get to the point where they can see it, okay, fine, you're right. Maybe there was a creator at the beginning, but does it have to be the God of the Bible? You could be like, well, let's take a moment. Let's look at all the different world religions and let's see which one actually aligns with history and science best. And the reality is the answer to that is the God of the Bible. So, that's all the points that I had.